My name is Grayson Earle, and I'm a previous resident at Pioneer Works, where I was developing a toolkit for workers who are striking or unionizing. My work tends to try to intervene on systems of power to provide autonomy for people who are protesting or demonstrating or trying to engage with politics in some way. I'm hosting a series of workshops at Pioneer Works called Strike: Speculative Tools for Workplace Protest. The idea is that everyone gathers into a room or a Zoom conversation and talks about various problems that they've encountered in the workplace, whether that's like about wage transparency or discrepancies or the inability to unionize for various reasons. And then we invent tools that are intended to counter some of these concerns. Some of them are more speculative projects and some of them are very real. One of my favorite ideas for a project that came out of this was hacking the workplace printer so that before anything printed, if you go to print some document for work, before that happened, a sheet would get printed with some organizing material on it, right? Like meet at the lunchroom at 2 p.m. to plan our union or something, or just a solid black ink to, defund the company slightly. And so the project, revolves around that form and some other forms, and the printer and the workshop and all this stuff, and also a series of performance interventions, like when I hacked the Hans Haacke exhibit with my collaborator. So I think the theme of work that I'm interested in personally is sort of like post-awareness art. So I tend to think that we are at peak awareness. Everyone more or less kind of knows what's going on, and so the real challenge is how to move beyond that and intervene directly on the systems themselves, rather than to produce more evidence of why the system is so messed up. And so Floodnet is one of these projects. It's by the Electronic Disturbance Theater, including Ricardo Dominguez. And the idea here is that it's a program that you download, and it launches you become part of a distributed denial of service attack. So this is something that you may have heard of and forgotten in the past, but the idea of a distributed denial of service attack, or a DDoS or DDoS attack, whatever you want to call it, is that you're basically just sending a very low level, very basic message to a server. So it really just looks like this. If you wanted to take down my website, you might type that 1 million times. So it's just a ping, which is like, it's a call and response. How quickly is this page loading, or how quickly is the server responding to that request? And so the idea is that you don't just do this once like I just did. You do it hundreds of thousands or millions of times through the coordinated efforts of large numbers of people, or at least large numbers of computers under your control. So if you sent this message 100,000 times in a minute to my server, it might succeed in taking it down. And this has been done throughout history, or throughout recent history, by groups like Anonymous, when they took down the various payment sites that wouldn't allow you to donate to WikiLeaks. And it's of course a bit of a legal gray area. And one of the things that's so interesting about Floodnet and what Ricardo Dominguez and his collaborators did there is that they successfully argued in court, after they launched this against the World Economic Forum in 1998, that it should be protected as free speech, both in terms of it being an artwork and in terms of it being in a lineage of sit-ins. So the sit-in, being a protest technique that emerged out of the 1960s, he calls this a virtual sit-in. And so that, at once kind of like protects it, and then also gives meaning to it, like grants historical significance to this new practice, right? Like it's in a trajectory of activism. It's a continuation of resistance and these things that we've been developing, as political people for some time. One of my other favorite projects is the Etoy War. So this is basically there's this art collective that had the domain name Etoy. And then there was this corporation that launched kind of in the middle of the big internet, bubble. And they were Etoy Incorporated. And so they wanted Etoy, the art collective, to give up the domain name. Etoy was not based in, the art collective wasn't based in the United States, so they didn't have any sort of reason to do that. And they kind of said no, and then the company sent them a cease and desist and tried to sue them. And so the art collective then started this war with the goal of, basically it was a game with the goal of devaluing the corporation's stock share prices to zero. And it did that by offering people the chance to play the game, right? So you could log in and be awarded points for something like getting a negative review written of the company on some website. Maybe that's 10 points. Getting onto local news, that's 100 points. Getting a negative story run about the company on national news, 10,000 points, right? And so at the end, the company went down to $0. They went totally bankrupt. It's kind of hard to say how much of a role the game played in that, considering it was part of the wane of the .com bubble, but still a very interesting project that I think lends itself to things that are happening now. Another favorite project or set of projects for me that aren't necessarily art are SETI at Home and Folding at Home. SETI is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and before you look at me like I'm some kind of weirdo, it's perfectly legitimate organization with ties to NASA, started by Carl Sagan and Frank Drake and all that stuff. Anyway, the idea with SETI at Home is that the Berkeley arm of SETI ran out of money or funding at a certain point. And so basically it's like they have, this giant satellite array in Puerto Rico pointed at the sky that, or the stars, I should say, that both kind of send information and attempts to receive information to see if there are, intelligent beings out there trying to communicate with us. And the raw data from the satellite array, it is so expensive, so computationally expensive to crunch that, renting supercomputers that can do this is quite expensive. And so SETI at Home was a solution to this problem. They created software that took the raw data from the satellite array, and then you could install on your computer SETI at Home, and it would take that data and crunch it and send it back to researchers in a usable format. And of course your computer isn't as powerful as a supercomputer, but 10,000 people's computers working together is as powerful or more powerful than a supercomputer. And so SETI at Home successfully created an ad hoc supercomputer, and it worked. So this is both amazing in terms of it being a technical achievement that they were able to create a distributed supercomputer. So interesting about this project to me is that it's kind of a different model of participation. It's not really like volunteering or donating. It's a bit more, it's another step, right? It's like you are doing the thing itself as well with them. And so I think it kind of like transforms you into a more invested participant. One of my projects that took a lot of inspiration from SETI at Home is Bail Block, which is a computer program that bails people out of jail. Right now, we're partnered with the Connecticut Immigrant Bond Fund to release people who have been detained by ICE. Previously, it was the Bronx Freedom Fund. The way that it works in a nutshell is that it is mining cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency works basically by trying to get around the idea of having a central authority who tells you who has what amount of money and so on. And it does this through a kind of opt-in level of participation on the network, where you contribute your computing power to the task of verifying transactions on the network, moving money around, that kind of thing. And that process is incentivized. So it gives you some small amount of the cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin or in this case, Monero. It gives you a fraction of that cryptocurrency as a reward for solving these problems and helping the network, basically. So if you download BailBlock, it runs in the background of your computer, takes about as much system resources as like a YouTube or Netflix video. And then, through hundreds or sometimes thousands of people using the software simultaneously, it scales up quite quickly, and cryptocurrency is generated. And then I, trade that for US dollars and use it to get people freed from pretrial detention. I wanted to leave everyone with a moment of Zen, in a sense. This is the protest cube, I believed by group Tools for Action. I think of this as something that is both aesthetically beautiful and serves a purpose for political engagement. So in this work acts as a barrier between protesters and police, so that protesters aren't harmed by the batons and so on of police. And it can also be reinflated and used in times of crisis. If you want to check out more of my work, there's the address. I appreciate you. I think that it's probably prudent for me to wish everyone out there to stay safe, stay healthy, stay active, and I hope to see you out on the streets or in some fun Zoom meeting soon. All right.